expanded.
One other thing is that the mayor mentioned, as he started to introduce this particular resolution here, is that what this is, right?
Right.
So for this one, he said, you know, we didn't want to have somebody going in and just buying some property so they could make literally almost a quick buck or any type of impropriety in that situation. But I think you just mentioned that someone did just buy a house, but now all of a sudden they've pulled themselves off.
It was a foreclosed home that probably was...
So it was a foreclosed home. Was it known to be in a floodplain already?
Yeah.
And so this person kind of bought it and they decided, hey, I'm going to buy it because the city will probably...
No, they went to... They found an affordable home where 2 years ago it probably wasn't affordable.
So when was the purchase of this home made?
April, May.
About 3 months ago, someone bought a house after we did all these buyouts of all these other properties being in the floodplain right over there. So quite a roll of the dice.
Well, the one that was purchased is on Fairmont.
With something that's been foreclosed and in a floodplain.
But it's not in the area where we bought the 4 houses. It's in the other area.
It's in this new area off of Fairmont Drive.
Right.
So some of these other owners over here, how long have they known then about this?
Which, the owners on Fairmont, or, well, everyone who was a part of the original grant application, Joel had spoken with, and they had all said that they'd be interested in selling. So the seller of that house knew. The present owner, when I spoke with him about a week ago after the article was released, stated that he had not been told that these would be prospective purchasers.
But the seller who sold him the house knew about it. He knew about it, right, but then he didn't tell the current buyer that it might be bought out by the city or
Well,
something.
I think he bought it through the bank, so I don't think that he bought it from the person who had spoken to us.
Okay, and now he's rescinded? He doesn't want to be a part of the program right now?
He, when I talked to him initially, he said he most likely would not, but he hasn't decided for certain.
It just seems to cast, just seems...
It might be.
You know, I believe in the ultimate faith in man, right? And I think everyone's absolutely honest, but this one just doesn't smell right for some reason.
Well, I think Joel is correct. They did buy the house at a very definite reduced price, and the house had been on the market for over a year, and it was vacant for a large part of that time.
If I could jump in, is that one of those then if he did at a future date come in, could we then negotiate down and say we're not going to buy, you know, if you only paid $100,000, we're certainly not going to give you $190,000 and negotiate it down to the price he paid for it plus 10% or something?
The fair market value would reflect what his purchase price was.
Okay, so we would go back.
That's a part of the
Okay.
appraiser's information that he would use in determining that price.
So that would take care of itself then. It would not be the same purchase price or the same assessed value that it may have been a year ago.
It would most likely be
So I think
self-correcting,
that
yes.
that hopefully that if we don't trust him or her, that at least that's taken care of legally through the assessed value of it. Thank you.
Mr. Gallagher, to try and give you a little comfortability, if this had been a third-party arm's-length transaction between the individual who owned the house and that person, the seller would be required to disclose that it was in a floodplain. However, since this was a foreclosure, that's not necessarily true. The bank, first of all, may not have known that it was in a floodplain. I would assume if they loaned money within the last 10 to 15 years, they would know that. But they're not required under state law to disclose that information since it's not an arm's-length transaction. Since it's a foreclosure, they didn't have to tell the seller that this property was in a floodplain. I would hope if he got a mortgage, his lender would require flood certification. Most lenders do. But if, in fact, this was sold at a short sale for a cash deal, he wouldn't have gotten that information and probably didn't look into it if he was an unsophisticated buyer.
What if what they just said, though, Attorney Guest, that this was purchased through a bank and not really through the actual seller?
Well, that would be the foreclosure where the bank may not have been aware, either may not have been aware of the floodplain status, which I find a little difficult to believe.
So you can have that same feeling that I have, right? I mean, I don't think it's going to take this, you know, I mean, I understand what we're doing, and it's unfortunate that they decided to pull away, and that's fine, right? But I don't want to have the perception for the other residents in the city to say, well, I'm going to go buy a house over in this floodplain area over here, and then the city will just buy it out for me. And then guess what? The City of DeKalb is back into our real estate business again.
Yeah, but it's going to be assessed at the value of the house. So
That's great.
They're not making any money on it. I mean, I don't see any money being made here, and I think that that's the impropriety And at this point
Maybe
in
that's
time-
why he just pulled the deal. He's like, if I'm not going to make any money.
And so he's going to live in a floodplain. That's his
Which
choice.
he knew.
And I
from
live in
the
a
first-
floodplain,
which he
and
knew
I
because
wouldn't
the
put that
river's
on
right
anyone.
there, and he lives right next to a river.
Mr. Baker.